Okay, guys, we are back. We are back post the apocalypse of the Fab Fatties podcast falling apart, and then there were two, right? We're post Allie's finding Alex and I's video and posting on her Instagram saying that we're talking SHIT about her, right? Very interesting developments this week. I am so sorry it took me so long to get to this fat react of the podcast, right? I've been talking about it and it's been delayed by 4 videos, but here we are at last talking about the Fab Fatties again and sleuthing, as it were, to figure out why Maria left the podcast. And now we can also look for clues about why Allie left the podcast. Although I like to go with Alex's theory. Like, my own personal canon is that he and I made her quit. I mean, it sounds crazy, but she did single out our videos. It's a little weird when she calls you out by name. Well, anyways, guys, we're going to jump right into it. And this is an episode called Stepping into the Spotlight, Lights, Camera, Allie. Now, here's the thing about this episode. This is not the last episode that Maria is in. That's episode number 10. This is episode number 9. But when I was doing research on the falling out on the wonderful Kiwi farms that really compiled all this information for me, they did kind of hint at a lot of stuff goes down in episode 9. So I thought we'd do episode 9, then 10, and then finally 11, where 11 is the episode where she is no longer there. So yeah, we're going to jump right into this one. I also think it's great to do the spotlight episode on Allie. So basically it's just all about Allie's story and how she found her fat acceptance origins. And I think it'll be very interesting to watch this as well, because not only we're going to see like one of the last interactions between her and Maria, but we might get some information about why she quit, as I said, but also see if that information she's giving us today is consistent with the more recent episodes that we've watched. And as you know, we're going to be stopping frequently. I'm going to try to split it into 4 parts. I'm going to try to film this entire thing today. See how far I get into it. Try to film as many videos as I can over the next few days because I'm going to be going on vacation soon. I want to put those videos out despite being on vacation. So yeah, here we go. Let's learn about Allie. Probably the strongest personality type on this podcast.
Welcome back to the 4 Fab Fatties. We are so excited this week to talk about a really fun topic. I'm a little nervous, so bear with me. I
don't mean to pause it so soon, but there's one thing I forgot to point out. And I just remembered it when I said she had the strongest personality type on the podcast, which is objectively true. She's the strongest personality on the podcast. That being said, we also know that she's self-admitted to having BPD, that's borderline personality disorder. And a characteristic of that personality disorder is not having an identity or feeling like you don't have an identity. There's a viewer I have who actually has it, who explained it extremely well. So if you're here, you go ahead and explain it again in the comments and just please enlighten us, because I want to put that out there. And I'm not here to rag on anybody with that kind of personality disorder or borderline personality disorder, I guess what they're calling it. I'm not going to rag on anybody with that particular difficulty, but I can actively see how a lot of projection and over-identification with being fat would happen due to that specific disorder based on everything I've read about it. Now, that being said, one thing that you guys also pointed out in the dinner episode that we watched, where they all went to the Italian restaurant, is that Maria is the most soft-spoken. She's a little bit awkward. We can definitely see why she in particular was pushed out of the group. She doesn't vibe with the other girls. Whether or not she was deserving of that bullying, though, in the process, probably not, right? There was probably better ways they could have handled it. But I think it just goes to show that this ideology of fat acceptance, it's not very accepting. It's very toxic in all avenues, to the point where they just start eating their own, right? You have a disagreement about something, clash of personalities, the same toxic, I don't want to say it. The same toxic girl stuff comes out. And as I said, it's not that this is a girl thing in particular. I'm not ragging on women. It's just that most people in fat acceptance just happen to be women. And there's no way around that. Okay, I'm sorry. Maybe that's why it's important that I, as a woman, am actively pushing back against it. Oh, you know what? That's so funny. Now that I think about it, Alex did make mention that when Allie called us out by name, by showing our names, in our channels on her Instagram feed, she kept referring to the other person she was calling out on the podcast, the person with the mustache. Alex has a theory that the reason why she called us out specifically is because I'm a girl and he's girl adjacent. You know what that means. And it's much easier for girls to attack other girls. So hey, cheers to that, right? But yeah, let's go back into it. Just to recap, Maria, awkward, doesn't fit into the group that well. Sorry, Maria, it's truth. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. You still have bad ideas with your fat acceptance ideology. Regardless of that, you don't deserve to be bullied by your supposed friends. Okay, back to Allie.
But before we do that, we're going to introduce ourselves. And obviously, I'm Allie.
I'm Rebecca.
Alyssa.
I'm Maria.
All right. So this week, we're talking about my favorite topic, me.
Oh my God. That's perfect.
This is the first in our series of getting to know us, everybody. So yeah, what?
It's already.
You got lipstick on your teeth already. It's the signature red, man.
My signature red loves to be on my
Yeah,
teeth.
if you see that red on her teeth, just know it's there with love, and it'll probably disappear about 10 times and come back about 10 times.
How does it
And
look
that's
now?
part of her charm. It's gone now. You're good, girl.
Yeah.
Okay, this is so picky, but I want you to look at their look at them right now, okay? So they actually look better full body shots. I don't mean to be mean about that, but they look better full body shots. Alex was making the point to me earlier when we were talking that so 3 out of 4 of them are what we call that mid fat. Maybe Alyssa is a little bit closer to super fat. Maria definitely super fat, but Rebecca and Allie mid fat. The camera angles that they use on the most recent podcasts make them look much bigger than they actually are. I really, really wonder why they switched from doing full body shots when they're talking to do the group talk to just single shots where the camera is kind of like giving them really terrible angles. I think it's kind of silly to speculate, but I'm going to anyways. And I kind of wonder if they were trying to eliminate pushback against, their body sizes and you couldn't see most of it. But I think it actually had the opposite effect.
Anyway, so this is the first part of our 4-part series of getting to know us.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm starting out my own episode.
She was voluntold.
I was voluntold that I was going first. But I did volunteer to start my own episode because I have a question for all of you.
Oh. Plot twist. That
I
is a plot
know.
twist. I'm like, this is not what we discussed.
How much does a penguin weigh?
32.8 pounds. You're welcome. Moving on.
That actually sounds correct.
Well, you ruined that for me.
Wait, is that correct?
No.
Oh
my God.
But I do know how much. It's enough to break the ice.
Well, that failed. That failed spectacularly.
You know what? Well, I thought you were gonna ask us. How much do you love me? I know. I was ready. I thought Allie was just gonna start hyping herself up, being like, "Tell me the most amazing thing about
I
myself."
think I need to hype myself up.
No,
Okay, no.
you don't.
Okay, number one, where I was going with that was not to break the ice. Hey guys, so that was my go-to.
Maria 1.
My
Me 0.
Sorry, that was a
I can already see the dynamic between them. Okay, Maria, hilarious to me that you ruined her joke. I do think that's funny. I don't think Allie appreciated it. And she keeps interrupting her. And Maria was a little bit more, was a little cleverer than we gave her credit for, but still fits into that awkwardness because if you knew the punchline to a joke, you're supposed to keep it to yourself. Let her have her joke. Allie's laughing. I think she is inside fuming.
Maria going, that's your joke.
All right, well, thanks a lot for that, Maria. I'm absolutely going to dunk on you on your...
She's like, I'm going to dunk on you when it's your turn to have a spotlight episode. Maria never got a spotlight episode because, as we can figure, our suspect number 2, Allie, drove her out of the podcast. Was more or less the reason why she quit. And suspect number 1, Rebecca, who I originally was more convinced had something to do with it. I had a commenter in one of my other videos who put it best, is that even though Allie was probably the most overtly toxic towards Maria, Rebecca supported it. Rebecca was probably fed up, but just wasn't as reactive over it. And so when push came to shove, Rebecca was probably like, that girl's annoying, get her out of here. But yeah, you can definitely still see the tension. The tension is still carrying through. I'm so happy we started with this episode instead of episode 10.
That was amazing. I don't know how to recover. Moving on. So yeah, so that was my go-to little party line back in college for all the boys.
It was a very good party line.
I bet it worked. I would walk up and be like, "Hey, how much does a penguin weigh?" I don't know. Enough to break the ice. I'm Allie. Okay.
It'd work on me. Just
I was
saying.
say,
You know what?
Never in my life have I delivered an icebreaker line like that. Ever.
Well, it worked about 30 times. So let's get into the questions.
Yeah,
Let's definitely
This
get
is a
into
new
it.
format for us, and like Ali said, it's the first of 4, so we will each have our turn at the table to be questioned. But we want to start off a little lightning round of questions.
All right, I'm ready.
Lightning round.
Lightning round.
Go.
Getting into it.
Rebecca, what's your go-to Starbucks order?
Currently, the pistachio cream cold brew.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be? Faster.
To read people's minds. Because I'm an overthinker.
If you were a snow cone, what flavor would you be and why?
I
If
did
you
this
were
already.
a Sonic,
Blue raspberry.
not everyone watches these. Why?
You see the way that Maria rolled her eyes, and I was like, I already answered this question. And Maria's like, not everybody watches these. You can see that the tension is so there. They do not like each other. My goodness. I love the eye rolls and then playing it off for laughs. It's like they're not happy with each other.
Because it's delicious and it turns your tongue blue, and I
Because
like
it's
to
obviously
linear.
a little sour and not existent. Yes.
Obviously a little sour. It just keeps going. I'm going to pause this a million times because they're just being so catty towards each other. I mean, you know Allie's a little sour. That's why she's no longer on the podcast herself.
Next question.
Favorite movie of all time?
Ooh, Goodfellas.
If you could pick to fight one horse-sized duck or 100 horse-sized... Wait. Okay, hold on. Okay, if you could pick to fight one duck-sized horse or 100...
No.
Yes.
One horse-sized duck
Yeah.
or 100 duck-sized horses.
Yes. Yeah, we got there. Ellie knows. So
Okay, one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses.
What you
Yes,
said.
100 duck-sized horses.
You're
I will
wrong.
punt those things. Absolutely. If I have to fight them, I will be punting duck-sized horses.
Allie, PETA is not a sponsor anymore. Well, there goes that.
Sorry, PETA. Absolutely not.
Tell me something that would surprise us.
I am not wearing underwear.
That's not
That's
surprising.
not-
It might be surprising to you. Not me.
We used to that.
Yeah, you know, this
Well, I
dress
love
just
it.
doesn't allow it.
Oh
You
my
survived the
God.
lightning round.
You survived the
Congratulations.
lightning.
Did my lipstick.
It did.
It did that for me.
Mascara, slightly
Oh,
not. You know,
man.
she's leaking already, but you know what? Those eyes are going to leak a little bit more because we're
Here's the
going to get
thing.
into some deeper stuff.
I am currently on a lot of prednisone, which is a steroid that makes me sweaty. Because I had another allergic reaction and my face blew up again. Turns out it was not my makeup wipes, it was my hairspray.
I still don't understand how your hairspray would get your face.
It's an aerosol spray. It's a mist. So as I'm doing this, right?
No, it just feels
Ellie's
on my
lying.
face. Yeah.
So
No, I don't think you're lying. I just think that
No.
maybe you haven't actually figured out what is causing the allergic
No, we
reaction.
figured it out. Allie likes to use her hairspray as like Botox because it's in this economy we can't afford it. So she holds these bad boys and just
No,
sprays.
you do not.
no, I don't. But you know,
What was that? Allie likes to use her hairspray as Botox. Maria, that's a little shade. Okay, whenever you hear girls make fun of each other's looks like that, especially in friend groups that are not solid, like we know this one is not solid, it's typically a dig. Like that was a dig that Maria made towards Allie. So it's just more fat on fat crying, left and right, punches being thrown, bodies dropping to the floor. Like, there is so much good catty content in this episode. So, and we're only how many minutes in? 5-6 minutes in.
things like
The way I
I'm
was on
spraying.
track
Me
with
too.
you.
I was like,
100%. But yeah, like the way that I'm spraying, I probably inhaled some.
Mm.
Yeah, you know,
Didn't work out well.
I hate that.
Yeah.
same. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm very sweaty.
Well, we're gonna work through it, and
Yeah.
it'll be okay. We'll just all be sweaty buddies together.
Yeah,
I love it.
appreciate you guys throwing me into this on my
Your sweaty
prednisone
day.
journey. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Well, now we're moving into the next segment, which are more just kind of general questions about, I think, general things we want to know about each other, but not pointed to each other, because we do later on have questions specifically about Allie that are based on our knowledge of Allie. And of course, you know, as listeners, you may have been following Allie for a while. She may be a new person for you. So we're just excited to dive in a little deeper.
Dive in.
Dive in.
Now, what she means by that is that prior to Allie being on the Fab Fatties podcast, Allie had her own podcast. I know, I discovered this the other day. I can't remember who told me. I think it was one of my commenters, but oh my God, I ran to Spotify so quickly. Okay, she has all those episodes up, and I definitely want to listen to them. I want to know what her early thoughts are, because like I said, when you have people like this who live in this delusion, when they're constantly promoting this toxic ideology, they're not often being honest with themselves, and they're not being honest to you. I really, really want to see the inconsistencies. I really want to see where she said one thing and changed it later on. Because we've already seen that happen several times in this podcast. Not this one. I mean, like overall, the different ones that we've seen, where they just contradict themselves, or the story changes slightly, or they will change a detail to fit their narrative. It's just more information that I'm very interested in checking out. So yeah, she had her own podcast. Who knew? I guess some of those listeners carried over to this one.
I like it. Who wants to ask the first question?
I don't like when I missay a word.
Leave it in.
Go for it,
All
Maria.
right, I'm
I can
ready.
start.
I'm ready.
So we've all spoken pretty extensively about the importance of finding plus size community. What's one previous idea that the community has helped you change or resculpt?
For myself?
Yeah.
So many.
Yeah.
So many. I think probably the biggest one is that, I'm not a bad person for being fat.
Yeah.
That would probably be number one.
That's such an interesting thing that she said there. Okay. I know that was like, we're sleuthing for clues in this episode, but let's still break down some of these misconceptions that fat acceptance likes to push out there. I do not think there has been one point in my entire life where somebody even mildly implied that I was a bad person because I was fat. You let me know if you've had a different experience. Obviously, you're always going to have toxic relatives who probably have behaviors of their own that projecting them onto you. That's completely different. But society at large, where the overwhelming majority of people, 90+% of people, do not have those behaviors, it's not going to happen. Now, they might say you're unhealthy. That's just a given. But are they going to say that you're a bad person? Very unlikely, unless you are genuinely a bad person. But you are not a bad person because you're fat.
I think just in general that I'm worthy of living a full and beautiful life. Yeah.
I love that for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I could go on for like an hour about that,
yeah.
but that's really like the meat of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love it, short and sweet, and
Thanks.
I think also
Just like me.
I think it's
She's like,
interesting
"No."
because like we do like use the word bad for like behaviors or whatever, but like to actually feel like a bad person
Mhm.
because of that. So I know that like not everyone is fat at the same like time. Like some people are fat kids, some people aren't fat kids. They get fat in adulthood. When did you realize your body was deemed fat?
That's a good question. It was definitely in elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
It may have been later in elementary school, but I definitely think it was when I just started to notice that I didn't look the same way the other girls did in my clothes. And I also was like, I don't know. I also had some health problems in elementary school too. That's when I had like all my kidney issues. And I had I was born with a deformed kidney. So I had to have a bunch of reconstructive surgeries. They're both fine now. Well, whatever. But so I was like in and out of the hospital a lot. So it was more I knew that I was different in elementary school. But there was definitely, I just knew that I looked different than all the other girls,
That's so interesting because I didn't know that. I didn't know about your young kidney issues. I was also in the 5th grade out of school for 3 months from being ill. And it was a big time where I became much more aware of my body. So like whenever you did realize that you're fat, do you remember kind of like how that made you see your body in that moment? It sounds like maybe just different, but is there anything else besides that?
Before she continues on, this is something that I want to talk about too. I do think she's telling the truth, or no, obviously she is, when she says that she noticed she looked different than the other kids. What was it, like Sesame Street song, right? Like one of these things is not like the other. It's like you do notice when things stand out. And now I remember when I was in 2nd grade, I was not overweight, but I started developing quite early. I wasn't fully going through puberty, but I started to put on that baby fat, so to speak, in 2nd grade. And I remember one day looking at my thighs and looking at the girl next to me and being like, why are her thighs like chicken thighs and my thighs are thicker? They're still thick to this day, by the way. And I was just like a really stocky 2nd grader. And I wasn't that tall. I was taller than a lot of kids in that class, but I wasn't the tallest. Like there was definitely some very skinny, tall girls for, whatever reason. They were just like little beanpoles. But I was like a stocky, taller child. I'm like average height now, though, so that's nothing to do with how tall you are in 2nd grade. Does not mean anything towards how tall you are later on. But I definitely noticed that my body was different. I wasn't fat yet, though, but I But that's still my point, though, is that you do notice those things, even if you're not fat. I was still larger than those other girls. Now, when I started going through like active puberty, before I got my period, but I was getting larger, I was putting on more weight. I wasn't still overweight. I was on the high end of the BMI, maybe at 26, 27, but like I was about to go through full puberty and get my period. And I remember being in 5th grade, being a little bit larger than everybody else, being fully developed. It was very awkward for me at 11 years old, like 10, 11 years old. And when I'd moved to Virginia the year prior, one of my dad's friends, I didn't know this at the time, but we'd met one of my dad's friends and we were going to go over to his house for dinner. And he had a daughter and I was very excited to meet her because when you're a kid and you're like, oh, you're going to meet another girl, it's someone to play with, right? I was in 4th grade at the time, almost 5th grade, but in 4th grade. And I had never thought of myself as fat, like that word FAT, but I always thought of myself as bigger. Like I was just a little bit bigger than all the other girls. And I get to their house and the girl and I are going up to her room to play. And she looks at me and she says, my dad said that you were fat, but you don't look fat to me. You look normal. And the memory of her saying that has stuck with me to this day. I know that it shouldn't, but it does. So that's why I was like, kids remember the things that are said to them. And that was like a really shocking thing to me. And it really like beat down my confidence for a very long time in that really important developmental stage. Now let's talk about that. It was absolutely horrific, rude, out of line for that dad, my dad's friend. This is the guy who was supposed to be his best man at his wedding, wasn't because he was on deployment, said that about a child. Especially since, like I said, I wasn't even overweight. I was just stockier. And also, he said that in front of another kid, right? So when it comes to that kind of stuff, yeah, are there absolutely people out there who are total a-holes? For sure. For sure that stuff exists. Especially since I later found out, I'm pretty sure both he and his wife actually had behaviors. Like that's something that I found out later on. Like they were both the reduction behavior. So everybody to them was fat. So that's a completely different thing. So it's like you can argue like, oh, society's fat phobic. No, they actually had eating behaviors. And then they projected it onto a little 4th grader. That's where this stuff comes from. That toxic stuff comes from people with behaviors. But yeah, that really set me on a spiral mentally. I didn't develop any behaviors, but I definitely like lost a lot of confidence. And so that would be my moment of when I first learned that. And then as luck would have it, I just ended up with a bunch of hormonal issues. I had a genetic disease I was not aware of, all this terrible crap, and my health spiraled from there. But I then broke my back when I was 12, and then I broke it again at 14, and it's just like so many unlucky things happened to me. But so yeah, I do believe her when she says that's when she realized she looked different, and it's unfortunate to go through that as a kid because you really just do want to fit in. And I can see how that experience probably shaped a lot of the way that she viewed herself.
I don't know if it was. No, I think because I was so young, it was just more so that I just felt different. I felt different. I felt maybe slightly othered, because I wasn't necessarily, because we're in elementary school, but there's still, there's already, girls getting attention that I'm not getting, and little comments here and there that also, wasn't just happening in school, was happening around me, was happening at dinner table conversations and family events that were just that I didn't really realize then, but I realize now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
Yeah. I already want to go off script and ask a follow-up question to that.
Yeah.
Were there any really impactful moments when you were growing up around your body? Like, is there a specific instance you remember from elementary, middle, high school about being singled out due to your size that then changed the way you behaved or moved or
Yeah. And I talked about this in another episode. But there was specifically, I don't know why this sticks with me so much, but I used to do a lot of volunteering. There were air quotes there for our listeners. I used to do a lot of volunteering at my mom's office when I was younger. Mostly it was just I was going to my mom's office with her, but I would help out around the office. And there was one day that there was some sort of like big event. My mom works for the school district, and there was some big event going on, and I was helping out in one of the classrooms, I think, and one of the guys that worked for my mom at the time, or worked with my mom, I thought he was so handsome, and I thought he was so nice, and he was always so kind to me. And I don't know. I had such admiration for him. And he came up to me, and I want to say I was either like late elementary school or early middle school. And he came up to me, and first he said that I was beautiful. And I was just like, oh my God, like, I think so highly of this man. And he said I was beautiful. I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. And in the same breath, you would be so beautiful. You have such a beautiful face. You would be so beautiful if you lost weight.
Mm-mm.
And that for me was like, that sticks out to me. Like, I can't.
No, I totally get that. That's devastating to hear at that age, especially from a stranger. Like, I mean, I call him a stranger because she's not a member of her family, not one of her friends, just somebody she's an acquaintance with. And to say it to a kid too, that's awful. My mom once said that to me actually once. Sorry, Mom. I know she watches these sometimes. But she said it to me when I was a teenager. And I don't even think she remembers saying it, but it really, really, that's something that I really held on to for the rest of my life. Like to this day, it's very, very impactful to hear something like that. It really makes you feel like crap. So I feel really bad for her that actually happened. Another issue that I had, kind of like around the same age. So when I was 12, 13 years old, a lot of people thought that I was 18 years old because I had developed so early. And so I looked like I was a legal adult. And I was actively struggling with my weight at this point because of the PCOS. And I was really into martial arts. I was really good. I was working out a lot. I was not like binge eating, I didn't do that. I didn't have those behaviors, but I was eating a lot. I remember just being just so hungry. I could not stop eating because I was just actively so hungry. So I was eating a lot. And so I was gaining weight, but I still wasn't like obese. I was just like maybe a little bit overweight or the high end of the BMI, right? For healthy. And I would have 20-something-year-old men hit on me all the time as a 12, 13-year-old. And I cannot begin to describe to you just how awkward and scary that is when you're a kid and you're not even thinking about dating. I was not one of those people like when I was younger who thought about getting a boyfriend when I was 12, 13 years old. Some girls do. That was not me. Because my body was different, have them talk to me like that was really, really scary to the point where I noticed it stopped when I gained weight, and it completely removed motivation for me wanting to be healthy at that age, wanting to be healthier. Whenever my mother would push diets on me and such, when I started gaining a little bit of weight, it was very easy to quit those diets because the smaller I got, the more attention I got that was unwanted attention. The larger I got, the more that attention went away. Obviously, when I did get to an age where that attention would have been wanted, I was too big to get that attention in the way that I wanted it. And yeah, I know that's a really, really like heavy, dark topic, right? It's kind of gross and weird, but even if you don't have those behaviors, you can still struggle with that mental conflict of like, I don't really want to lose weight because I'm going to get creeped on by these people, but I need to lose weight for my health. So you can have those mental battles even outside the behaviors. And I can see the beginning stages of how Allie developed that self-image, behaviors about herself. I believe these stories are true because I've experienced similar ones, right? And even if I hadn't experienced similar ones, I have enough friends who have experienced those kinds of things. So I totally get it in that regard.
I can't ever forget that. I can't ever forget the way that made me feel. And that's been my experience for a lot of my life is you have such a pretty face. You have such a pretty face. You have such a pretty face. Like from neck up, I was valuable to the world, right? And that really started there. And now it's even more like a little devastating to me because he's like a couture fashion designer and like he does not make anything above like a size 6, I think.
I think it's really sad that she hears that comment and immediately attaches it to value, right? She's like, oh, I realized that I have value beyond my weight. And that's so sad that, because like, here's the thing is I didn't think ever because of my weight, I lacked value. I mean, maybe on the dating market, I mean, that's just something that you cannot be helped. But in general, in life in general, I've always been an extremely valuable person. I've always been hyper competent, hyper efficient. I like efficiency is my entire life. I like to get things done in an orderly manner and in a timely manner. I've always been a very capable, competent, high skilled, intelligent person. Yes, I said it. And so I was actively able to cultivate my value outside of my body. I never struggled with that. It's very sad to me that she had to go on a completely different journey, that she had to go through fat acceptance to realize that she had value. And that's why I think this movement appeals to so many people, and why things like self-worth and self-esteem are really, really important despite what your physical appearance is. But I think we also have to realize that not everybody thinks this way. But this is also one of those reasons why she probably developed that behavior and I didn't. It's one of the contributing factors, I'm sure. It's not to say I'm better than her for not developing that behavior. I would never say that. Obviously, good people can develop those behaviors, even though I think that she has some issues. But then again, I also have a very strong identity, a strong personality. And so I feel like sometimes my personality can transcend any sort of like physical realm. That sounded really weird. I sound like fantasy stuff, but you know what I mean. My value has always been rooted way, way more in than anything other than my body size.
Yeah, that was it.
So we've already said the word fat.
Mhm.
How does that make you feel?
Oh, I
How do you
love
feel
it.
about the word fat?
I love it.
Okay.
I used to be so scared of it. I used to be so scared of the word fat. I
don't believe her when she says she loves it. That was forced.
So terrified of people knowing I was fat. I covered my body in the baggiest of clothes. I wouldn't, are you kidding me? I would never sit like this, right? With no pillow in front of me, no bag, no nothing, no purse to shield my stomach, right? I would never wear something like this. I would never wear a dress that actually showed my body, that showed my belly, like nothing, right?
Especially without underwear.
Or like especially without underwear, right? And like, it's just insane to me how far I've come from that to where it was like, please don't look at me. And the worst thing you could possibly do is call me fat. And now I have a podcast with my best friends and I call myself a fatty,
right?
Like,
oh, best friends for now, because we know that does not last. Okay, guys, I'm going to end it there for part 1. I'm looking at the length of this episode, and it has to be 5 parts. Okay, I said 4 earlier, but it's going to be 5 parts, and it's the end of part 1 of 5. The beginning of this episode definitely has informed us a lot about Maria and Allie's relationship. Definitely some sleuthing stuff there, right? Pull the magnifying glass out once more. The second half of what we watched today definitely gives us a lot of insight into Allie's upbringing and who she is as a person, and basically how she got to the way she is, why she went down this path of fat acceptance. But what are you guys' insights on it? What do you think? Do you have any thoughts on this? Any similar experiences if you yourself were ever fat as a child or large as a child or different as a child? Just let me know, because I'd be very interested in hearing your point of view and why you specifically did not fall into fat acceptance despite that. So I hope you guys have a good evening, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.